Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming today. We're really excited about an awesome conversation with some of our panelists today who are working in or alongside the public administration industry. So students, I'm going to encourage you to be thinking about questions that you have for these panelists. I'm going to start us out with some questions to get the conversation going, but I want y'all to be thinking about what you want to know. What questions did you come to this session with? What will help you as you move towards an internship or graduate school or the working world after graduation? So these panelists have lots of experiences to share. So definitely ask your questions. Throughout the session, if you're thinking of questions, you're welcome to post those in the chat, but there will be time at the end where you can unmute yourself and ask, or I can call on you if you want to put a little X in the chat box with a question. Whatever method you prefer, we can make work. I'm going to start. Oh, already started recording. Cool. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and get started. So I want to introduce myself quickly. I'm Laura Pell. I am a career coach for the College of Arts and Sciences. And if you all are in the College of Arts and Sciences, that means I'm your career coach. So I'm really excited to meet you if we haven't met before, and would love to support you as you're moving towards your next steps. Yeah, hopefully we'll get to work together eventually in the future. And I've worked with my colleagues, Deanne Smith and Dr. Chris May, in planning this today. So want to thank them for being here as well. The first panelist that I would like to introduce today is Doug Penley, who is here representing Lamb Insurance Services. And this organization works alongside a lot of nonprofits. So we thought that y'all may be interested in learning more about what their work looks like, especially the work that they do with nonprofits. So Doug, if you could quickly tell us a little bit more about you and Lamb Insurance Services and any information that you'd like to share off the bat.
Sure. Well, thanks, Laura. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. As you mentioned, my name's Doug Penley. I'm a sales director. I lead the market for North Carolina and South Carolina for Lamb Insurance. I'm an App State grad. I spent all my time in the College of Business back before the turn of the century. Wow, that makes me sound really, really old. But so I always knew I wanted to be in insurance. I worked in an insurance agent's office in Boone while I was at school. I did an internship in Charlotte and got out and really spent about 20 years with a very large insurance company, eventually working my way to where I was leading the Southeast in terms of the sales and distribution for that organization. Company was going through some reorganization, and I decided I wanted to do something different, something a little bit more meaningful, but something that built upon my insurance experience. And so in walks Lamb. So Lamb Insurance has offices in New York City and in Philadelphia. Lamb is the largest insurance broker or agency in the country that focuses on working with nonprofits and human service organizations or social service organizations. That term used interchangeably a little bit. And really, that's our expertise. That's what we do. We specialize in it. My day looks like reaching out to nonprofit organizations, talking with them, and really trying to engage them and help them with their insurance programs and risk management as well. Like a lot of industries, folks in that nonprofit space spend a lot of their time thinking about trying to positively impact people's lives. And so, I feel like the opportunity for me to help them with their insurance and with risk management it really just complements that a lot. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm with LAM. I believe in the mission. I believe in what we do because I believe it's so important to give back to the community. And
Thank you, Doug. We're looking forward to hearing more about LAM and you and hearing about that connection. Next, I want to introduce Heidi Hayes, who is here with us as a graduate from the MPA program here at App State. Heidi currently works for Bessemer City as a city clerk and I think many other things. So tell us more about you, Heidi.
Yes. Thank you, Miss Laura and Miss Dina for the invitation. Definitely excited to come back and speak to my friends here at App State. My name is Heidi Hayes. I did graduate from the MPA program in 2016, and I work for the city of Bessemer City as a city clerk, HR, human resources main person, the director here, as well as the communications and public relations specialist. So being many hats with a small municipality. So I definitely love it. A day-to-day for us is just like Doug said, it's something that you're very dedicated to. It's something that's multitasking, hopping all over the place, doing different things from Parks and Rec all the way to working with council, because that's who I directly report to and work with in as well as our city manager here. So I started off with communications when I graduated in 2016 with the city, but then I've progressed up to city clerk as well as HR here. So I've been here for about 5 years and loving it and looking forward to speaking with you all and answering any questions.
Cool. Thank you, Heidi. We're really looking forward to learning more about you. Last but certainly not least, Andrew Cutler, who is also a graduate from App State. Really exciting. You graduated with your bachelor's in community and regional planning here at App, and are currently working for the U.S. Department of Commerce as an economic development specialist. So tell us more about you, Andrew, and your current role.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm from Asheville and went to App State, graduated in 2013. With my bachelor's in community and regional planning, and then kind of jumped around all over the place for a while before kind of settling in with the Federal Emergency Management Agency for a while, doing long-term community recovery planning with them. So kind of getting my planning element in there, but then through that process, I decided I wanted to go to grad school, get a master's in public administration, and so I did that and graduated with my MPA from UNC Chapel Hill in 2019, and then through that process and my work with FEMA, I was able to kind of negotiate, figure out, navigate just where exactly I wanted to fit in more longer term. FEMA has very limited long-term options. A lot of it is kind of just as needed for disaster, and so wanted to be somewhere that I could kind of more establish a career and life and a family. So I've kind of finally gotten to that point, whatever, 7 years after I graduated from App State, and just right in the middle of the peak of the pandemic, I moved to Denver, Colorado to work for the Economic Development Administration of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And so that's what I do now, and it's kind of this mix of my public administration, planning, a variety of things. As an economic development specialist, I kind of just have a wide variety of random roles on any given day, which is what I enjoy about it. But primarily, I'm really kind of more of a grant specialist, would probably be more of a better classification than just economic development specialist. But it's mostly I process applications for and then manage grants for economic development projects in the Denver region of EDA, which is 10 Western and Midwestern states. So we have the largest geographical region for our agency and the fewest population, the smallest population still. So it keeps it kind of interesting, and it's just a variety of different things. So I can get into more details if we want more specifics going forward, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Andrew. We are looking forward to hearing more about your role and your journey there. So obviously recognizing that our audience here are college students, and they're coming here today for some more information and some advice on what you would maybe tell your college self. So I would love to hear from each of you what you feel like were some really valuable experiences for you in college, and or maybe some experiences that you like to see from recent graduates that you work with. So Heidi, would you like to start us out and telling us a little bit more about your thoughts there?
Sure. I know from my personal experience, the biggest thing or my biggest benefactor that's helped me was my internships. While I was working on my MPA at App State, I was afforded the opportunity in the summer of 2015 to intern with the city here. And they, took me through different departments, showed me everything from Parks and Rec to the finance and customer service side to kind of get a feel of what we do in local government, and just the public service side of it to see which department I really liked. And I appreciated that a lot. And it even in kind worked out for me because they appreciated me being here, so that when I graduated, they offered me a position here. So I think that was probably my biggest benefactor. I would definitely say internships are very beneficial because they give you the opportunity to see what you like, to actually get your hands dirty and see if that's where you want to be and what you want to pursue. And B, it gives you an opportunity to network and for people to see your work ethic and just see who you are as a person. And then secondly, that's funny you asked what we're looking for in graduates, because we actually, being in HR, the HR director, we were interviewing last week for a position that we have open in our Parks and Rec department. And we had a lot of graduates apply, and I can definitely tell you what stood out to my city manager as well as the Parks and Rec director was just the students who have taken the internships and who have actually had a little bit of even that summer experience and, working for the city's Parks and Rec department or getting out there and doing something in their field where they volunteered and helped with summer camps and different things like that. So definitely networking and actually getting in the field a little bit, whether it's, 3 weeks, a whole summer, 3 months, just to see if that's what you like. It definitely spoke volumes to our leadership here because they were able to say, okay, this person is more likely going to be dedicated and they're interested. And that kind of shows, that you're putting forth your effort. I know a lot of times we had over 100 applications and it was a lot of people that applied, but however, we kind of narrowed it down and gave interviews to people who had that relevant kind of experience. So I think a lot of people were like experience. You hear that shoved down your throat sometimes that you're like, okay, I'm going to get whatever I can get. I would definitely just say to my younger self or any other students to make sure that it's relevant to the field that you're wanting to go into. So.
Thank you. That's great advice. Can I ask you a follow-up? What was the process like for you getting that internship with
Sure.
Bessemer City?
I was pulling out my hair, applying everywhere we could. It was definitely, I want to say, the App State program. They were a really nice MPA program, and they were kind of putting out filters to say, okay, you might want to try here, contact different cities. So it kind of, I'm trying to think back exactly. I feel like they were ones that had people who were already in the program, and it was an internship that they had done for the second year. So they were kind of looking for candidates, but even me, I reached out to the Watauga County, anybody I could get to, apply. So I think some of the internship opportunities will come to you for you to apply, and people will recommend it to you. And then sometimes you can even take it amongst yourself to go out there and apply. But that's a great question.
Great. Thank you so much. Doug, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think Heidi nailed it. I mean, that's exactly right. In terms of, so I like Heidi, I'm interviewing, I'm hiring right now all across the Southeast, really North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. And when I look at that resume, when it comes across my desk and I look at it, I look for that relevant experience. I look for what that person has done outside of the classroom. Majors and GPAs and stuff are really important, but candidly, the first thing I look at is what have they been involved in? What experiences have they gotten to enjoy as a college student? Or is there any athletic? Is there anything on the resume that shows me that you know, they're curious, they're learning, they're trying to do different things. That's what stands out to me on a resume. That's what I look for. The internship is so important, and it's so important for that resume, but it's also so important for you to understand what you do and don't want to do. I did way back when I did an internship in underwriting. So I sat at a desk all day and reviewed applications. And it took me about 2 hours to figure out that I did not want to do that for a career. But, you know, up until that point, and just listening to everybody who had done that, I thought that was the way to go, was in underwriting. So it's important. That internship's important. It's important for the prospective employer to be able to see you, but it's so important for you to be able to figure out what you do and don't want to do.
Yeah, thank you for that, Doug. It does seem like the perfect opportunity without that commitment of a full-time job. Say, am I even going to like this or not? So thanks, Doug. Andrew, do you have any thoughts to add here?
Yeah, I mean, y'all both summed it up really well, and I think that key is the internship. I interned with the town of Boone Planning Department, and that was just like a really great learning experience. And I mean, I think it was the matter of like I had more like kind of perhaps you'd say non-professional setting jobs like leading up to that, but getting in there and having to figure out how to just navigate like an office in like a public service environment, which has its slight different elements to it, and kind of just having to like learn how to be in that zone in that process was really helpful. And also getting to know, that kind of figuring out what I wanted to do, what I was interested in, what kind of got me excited, and what was like, no. And it was really interesting because, I mean, leading up to that point, I was like pretty sure that I wanted to be a city town planner, and being in the planning office made me realize that I really enjoyed the concepts that related to planning and being around people like that were doing that sort of thing, but I didn't actually want to be a planner myself. I wanted to figure out ways to assist planners in doing what they were doing, and that's kind of like where I have gone since, and that kind of helped me think like, okay, well, let's look outside of like maybe directly like city government, and like what else can I do to kind of branch out with this, and I started getting into that concept of like assisting communities that have very specific planning needs, where you can like take something that's like a more specific project based rather than kind of this like broad long-term comprehensive planning. And I thought that was more interesting, held my attention better. And so I learned that from the internship. But I think also kind of as Doug was just saying too, I think what you do in like in class, in school, besides just even like the internship or that kind of thing, are really mattering as much like what kind of like work experience you necessarily have. Like there's so much different types of experience you can get just from class. And I did a better job of this in grad school than I did in undergrad, but I kind of learned from that, somewhat from my mistakes. But like just even in your classes, like as you are able to figure out ways, like different projects or class assignments that you can turn into an opportunity to get develop some kind of experience or research or something that you can say, here's something that I like worked on that is practical and relatable to the real world. And then you can show that to your employer and say, hey, like, check this out. Like, here's something I did. And when I did that more so in grad school, it was really helpful. And I came out of undergrad wishing I had done it more. And so I definitely would, so just think about that when you're just, how do your classes relate to the real world? And how can you, if it's not directly related at first, kind of how can you make that connection and use that as not just, oh, I got this grade in this class, but what is my experience that I got from learning and doing that? And the same even for like, kind of extracurricular organization involvement and stuff. And like, I was on the ASB ski team, and like being in that was really something that really helped me develop just as a person, and then my ability to like relate to others, be part of the team, like work towards this common goal and understand how to relate to people. And so even just that was an experience that I was then able to take and implement in my career and relate back to in interviews and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different things that you're getting while you're in school that is not necessarily, that is actually experience, that doesn't maybe come first thing to your mind as being experience. So to figure out how to kind of frame that and then use that to your advantage when you're looking for opportunities for work.
Yeah, I like that advice, Andrew. I think sometimes you do have to get creative with how you present your experiences and kind of need to do some thinking back on what exactly have you been up to for the past 4 years. And a lot of times there is a lot of value there. And sometimes just need to pay attention to that. I like Deanne's question about work experience. Some students, and maybe students here in this room, identify with this question Deanne posted. Those of you that are working a lot to pay for your expenses or to contribute to your school expenses, and that will cut into your availability for involvement opportunities. What does this look like to y'all that are maybe doing some hiring or have had this experience yourself? Doug, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. And I think that's certainly part of that experience outside of the classroom that I think all three of us were talking about. You know, I personally, I mean, I remember I worked at Blockbuster Video back when there was a Blockbuster Video in Boone. Worked at an insurance agent's office and sold shoes at Rack Room. And you bet I put that on the resume, and you bet I talked about the fact that I was working those 3 jobs while part of the time while I was at school, when I was able to talk to anybody, any prospective employee or any prospective, internship coordinator or anybody. So that's certainly something you should put on the resume, in my opinion. And that certainly contributes to what Andrew and Hadia was saying around, doing all of that sort of thing, while you're in school. What I'm looking to see is something other than just went to class, going to graduate, and a GPA. I want to see what else that candidate has been involved in, and the more diversity in things that they're involved in, the better. If there's some intramurals, put it on there. I think that's great. Andrew mentioned the ski team. Put that kind of stuff on your resume, because it just really helps show what you've gotten out of college and what college has gotten out of you, candidly.
Yeah, I work with a lot of students that say, well, I have work experience, but it's not related to the field, right? Maybe you've worked part-time in positions in a restaurant, or you worked at the movie theater, or wherever. You were a camp counselor. There's some of the common part-time jobs that you'll find a lot of college students doing. What does it say about a student that has had this experience, even if it's not related to the work that they want to do? What does that say to you when you see that? Idea?
I actually unmuted myself. I was going to see if I could interject. I think that speaks to the character and the work ethic that I was talking about earlier to the student. And also it gives you an opportunity to get crafty. We had one student who applied, and she is recently graduated from App as well, and she worked 3 different jobs: FedEx, assistantship, and I think at a local shoe store as well. And I think the way we were really impressed that she was able to say, okay, I've had that assistantship and I've worked in my department, and I know that public service is something that I want to do. But also in that outside field, she was able to relate and pull out different things that she had done via FedEx that talked about customer service and that spoke to the different transferable skills that she could take from that job and bring over to the public sector. So I think it's very interesting, and it gives the student an opportunity to be savvy and say, although I had to work, all these jobs to keep myself up, because I was working everywhere almost Walmart to keep up with mine when I was in school, to support myself. So I think definitely if you can relate that and say, I've got these transferable skills, I'm a hard worker, I've got work ethic, that really shows and speaks volumes to the people who are interviewing and the city management as well, because that shows us that you're a team player and that you're willing to be pulled in every direction. I even spent one day in public works holding, helping with manholes or something, just during my internship. That just speaks volumes to say that you can do multiple different things, even though this is where you're coming at and this is where you're meeting us. Definitely. I don't think students should shy away from that. They should definitely list it.
Thanks, Heidi. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned transferable skills, because I think in my experience with chatting with students, when they say it's not relevant, I encourage them to think past what their day-to-day responsibilities are and think more about what they've learned from this experience, how it's contributed to any skills that they've taken away that are transferable. So great. So I want to get a better sense of what your work looks like on the day-to-day. So I would love maybe, Andrew, for you to start us out by walking us through what your day looks like, what your interactions are like with others, and yeah, so we can get a little peek into what your life is like.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry. Okay, there it goes. I think you can hear me. It's interesting because as we were just talking about, even just like that additional work experience that may seem, that it was actual work experience that may seem unrelated that you got in college. Like I was a pharmacy technician in CVS while I was at App, and like even in the in my interview for my current position, I remember bringing up like still relating back to that when they were asking about like how was I going to be able to provide like quality customer service to the clients that we work with, and I was like, well, I got this pretty good customer service experience at CVS when you got people coming in and they're sick and they need their meds or whatever else, and like I mean people can get, and the lines get backed up if you've ever been to CVS, it can get pretty bad, and so I mean, but figuring out how to like relate to people in that situation and talk them down when it's crazy, and that sort of thing is something that I learned then and I still use and I've implemented in other instances as well. Because when I was a case manager at with the Salvation Army with their program for federal prisoners, that was time that I definitely needed those same skills, but like in a different way. But and so yeah. Anyway, but to answer the question you asked, sorry, in my day-to-day now with Economic Development Administration is pretty much like, it's been an interesting transition for me from what I was doing with FEMA, where it was very like I had just kind of like a set, here's what I need to work on each day, and I kind of knew what I was going to be doing every day when I got in the first thing in the morning, and I just worked through what I needed to do. And we had like one main goal that we were working on when I was deployed to a specific disaster, and so we just aimed towards that. And once that was done, then I would get sent home and go to another disaster. But this has been something where I've been having to learn some new skills working in the environment I'm in now with doing grants management and project-based. And it's just kind of wild. Like I have to jump around so much and move my attention to so many different things at any given moment. It's pretty much like I'll have an idea of what I'm going to do on any given day, and then as soon as I like open my email in the morning, it's like, oh, nope, I guess I'm going to be working on this, but I still have these other things I have to get done. So, and so I'm trying to figure that out is something that I guess even, I don't know, like about 10 months into my job now, I'm still trying to kind of figure out and just understand what exactly my roles and responsibilities are. But basically, the main thing that I do is actually work with applicants from a variety of cities, nonprofits, states, economic development districts that EDA funds, and then they can apply for specific projects to get additional funds. And that's usually through like council of government, but that varies by state. And I thought I just knew how that worked because it's like all exactly the same in North Carolina, and it's just all the EDDs are the same as the transportation districts, as the council of government, and they're all interconnected and all the same thing. apparently that's not the case everywhere. So that's been even just a wild thing, trying to work in other states and understand how that works. And then now managing projects in 10 different states and having to understand the regulations that go with each one, and how the different districts are organized and that kind of stuff. And so just trying to understand that. Basically, when they apply for a project, I go through and review what their application says, try to make sure that they are in line with all the applicable regulations. So I spend a lot of time in the Code of Federal Regulations and the kind of uniform cost principles and all that sort of stuff. So I'm kind of this almost legal element without being a lawyer that I've really enjoyed kind of learning more about. And then that kind of just customer service and relations and like building kind of these partnerships with the clients and trying to help them figure out what their project actually is meant to be. I had one recently where it was like, the application was pretty much, I guess, just kind of like a brain dump. And I was just like, this sounds like you have some really cool ideas, but I don't know what you're actually applying to have funded. And we need to figure this out and put it into some kind of format that works. And we got it a little bit there. And then I take those projects to our investment review committee that is some of our management, and they review it, and I kind of advocate for that client and say, hey, here's this project that we want to do, and kind of here's why I think you should fund it or not. And then they make a determination, and if they choose to fund it, then have to actually turn it into a project that more than just an idea. So most of my work on the day-to-day is taking those projects from kind of more of an idea to like, let's make this something that actually meets all the right program regulations and something we can actually fund and turn into something. And then once it gets funded, there's like it ends up being a much smaller portion of my work, but I kind of just manage that, kind of be there as they need questions, and then process it when they have like, we do everything on a reimbursement basement. So once they spend the funds, then they have to submit that reimbursement request, and I just review that and make sure that everything's up to par and they're not committing fraud or anything, and then authorize them to get the funds. So that's kind of the general thing, but then there's just a whole lot outside of that I could go into, but probably that's already more than you needed to know.
Thank you, Andrew. That sounds like a lot of responsibility, and thank you for sharing a little bit more about that. I think it's always interesting to me to hear more about, when you hear about a job, it's kind of sometimes hard to envision what the day-to-day looks like. So thank you. Doug, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what your day-to-day looks like, or maybe what, in addition to your day, what someone maybe that you may hire right out of graduate or right out of undergrad may be doing on the day-to-day as well?
Sure. Well, I will say that my day looks a lot different in the middle of a pandemic than what it would have looked like or what it did look like prior to a pandemic. I work for an organization where I've never been face to face, other than video with my boss. I've got a great associate that works for me, and we went through the hiring process, and he works for me, and we've still never been face to face. So it's different. It's different, but I think the whole world is, and certainly my industry has had to quickly catch up and leverage technology much greater than we ever have before. So I spend a lot of time on Zoom calls, actually. Quite honestly, I spend a lot of time reaching out to nonprofits and asking them about the opportunity to chat about their insurance programs. And we have some lead generation things that we're due and all of that, but mine's a sales job. So I admire, and I certainly love listening to Andrew and to Heidi and about what they do. Fascinating work. But mine's just a sales job. So I'm reaching out, I'm finding folks to talk to about their insurance at a time when, a lot of nonprofits and human service organizations are struggling for funding. And at a time when their need for services is at an all-time high. So that's what we do, if I boiled it down a lot, I spend a lot of time listening to folks tell me about their story and telling them about the Lamb story and how we might be able to help them. And that's such a gratifying work. It's not easy. I mean, to pick up the phone and call somebody out of the blue and just say, "Hey, my name's Doug Penley with Lamb Insurance. Love to chat with you about your upcoming insurance renewals." I mean, that's not always the most fun thing to do, but when you have an opportunity to hear how people impact others' lives, that makes all that hard work and those cold calls worth it.
Thank you, Doug. That's really, I like how you kind of narrowed it down, and it sounds like a really cool opportunity to get to know other organizations. So thank you, Doug, for sharing. Heidi, we would love to hear more about your day today.
Of course, I've been peeking here at the comments, and I think we've got a lot of good candidates in the room. I'd love to welcome a lot of you to Bessemer City as well. A lot of my day, it kind of goes in different things. It's multitasking, like I was saying earlier. So usually I start off with a couple of things where I'll come in and check our social media, make sure there's nothing, happening on the Facebook or the Twitter or our website that I've missed, make sure all of our events are up to date. But as well as Andrew mentioned, you can have those things that pop up on you. We have an employee who's going to be out for heart surgery soon. So I had to kind of stop, what I was doing and switch over to HR mode and work on his short-term disability papers and just making sure that he had everything together. On top of, we had an email come in where some of our employees could go and take the COVID vaccine as well. So I've switched gears, worked on that, and then even started back working on my city clerk items. We have our council meeting next Monday. It's the second Monday of the month at 7 p.m. So I have to get the agenda with the proclamations, the ordinances, and resolutions ready to go for council to review this Friday. So it's a lot of different hats and different things. And I can definitely see by reading the chat here that a lot of you guys would be a great fit for public administration, even the ones who set political science and the ones who've talked about computer work, because although it doesn't sound like on the face of it we would be doing computer work and different things like that, I can definitely say that myself and another employee who also did the accelerated admission process, I did kind of like the early college thing and graduated at 21 with my master's. So when I came in, they were like, okay, you're going to do IT. So it's like, I don't know it per se. I didn't go to school for it, but that's just another one of those other duties as assigned. So I could definitely see a student who has that IT, background coming in and being able to take on that hat, as well as I thought I seen somebody talked about graphic earlier, something relating to graphics. It's not anything that I specialize in, from undergrad to grad school, but working for the city and being in communications, I learned how to use the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite. So like the InDesign, the Illustrator, and Photoshop. And I think definitely, guys, even when you're applying to a job that has a cookie cutter that says we're looking for so-and-so type of candidate, I would definitely add that and put in like those different skills. When they ask you what other skills and assets do you come with, we were interviewing last week the candidates who came in and they had the IT technology, like they worked social media, so they could come in and help some of our department heads who've been here for a little bit longer. We have being a small city, our population is 5,500. Our department heads have been here for about 15, 20 years. And a lot of them don't, really deal with the IT and the social media. So having a fresh set of eyes, and the younger eyes come in and help manage that for them, as well as be able to help with the IT side of things, even work. I know a lot of you guys probably use canva.com. You wouldn't even realize how important that is to someone who's looking to hire, to say, okay, even though you've got this MPA degree or this political science degree, what other skills do you come with that you could be an asset to our company? So I would definitely list all of that, and even the non-traditional students who've already had that experience in technology. I think Ms. Emily was talking about that. I would definitely list that and say that, I'm coming in, I'm switching, but I can also bring other things, because that you never know, that could even increase your chances of being placed with that organization. So definitely, you got a lot of good students in the comments. A lot of good students.
Thank you, Hadia. I'm glad you were able to kind of look at what students were having to offer here. Students, I think this is an example of you networking and marketing yourself right here and now. So thank you to those of you that have put in your information in the chat. I meant to ask you to do that earlier, so sorry I forgot about that. But yeah, I think thank you all for giving us more of a picture of what your day looks like. I want to open the floor up to students with questions. It looks like Kara is already coming in with a really good looking question. Thanks, Kara. Do you have any recommendations for finding internships in local government specifically? Looking at for a graduate level internship and would love to work with local government. Do any of you have any advice for Kara?
I'll take it. I'll put in my little 2 cents here. Kara, I would definitely recommend, I assume that you're in with the Government and Justice Program. I know Dr. Rep Farley, who's now the director of the program, she definitely has a lot of connections and she knows a lot of the cities. Like for us, example, we had, after I came, I think we've had an additional 5 students come from App State to intern for the summer. I would definitely speak with her to see which cities traditionally do internships. I know we do, City of Bessemer City. I know Troy, the city of Troy, they have a great working relationship with App State, as well as the Alumni Association. Dr. Rhett Farley would definitely have a list on that, on the ones who are typically looking for the internships or intern students to come in. I know they'll send her a list as well. And they have a Facebook page that we actually, when we were hiring for this job, we had her post and we had a number of candidates that actually responded to it and applied. I would do it that way. And then also, like I told you, if you want to do some grassroots thinking, just reaching out to local governments that you don't mind, you have connections to, or maybe you don't mind going to move over there for just the summer to actually work. Like I know for the city of Greensboro, that's where my mom is. So I crashed on her couch for 2 months and, went and worked and, kind of got that experience there and collected some funds. And some of them are paid, like ours is paid, and it provides housing and different things like that that we used to have for our employees, which with our interns. Going forward with COVID, we're trying to see how we're going to do that. But I would definitely start with the ones who have historically helped out. I'm sure Dr. Rep Farley has a list on that. And I think I'll be giving my information at the end as well. You can email me and I can search through and tell you which ones. I just know us and Troy come to mind. I think the city of Lexington does one as well. But definitely that LinkedIn is definitely something I would recommend there. So, okay, I'm done.
Thanks, Heidi. That's really helpful, and appreciate your support in that. Andrew, this may be a question for you. State and federal level internships. Do you have any advice there?
Yeah, I just did something weird with that. Okay, there we go. Sorry. Surprisingly enough, I really don't use Zoom that much because for some reason EDA, I don't know, they were using Zoom before it was cool, and then it became cool, so they decided not to use it anymore. And it's like it's banned from our computers, which doesn't make any sense. But so I'm trying to figure this out on my personal computer. And anyway, okay, yeah. But basically, I guess that was something I've struggled trying to figure out. The whole internship, federal and state level. I do know that at least when I was looking, which has been several years now, but North Carolina at least used to, and I think probably still does, they I believe conglomerate all of their state department internships and post them online every spring, and they have like basically this just massive PDF that you can go through and see all the different options, and then I think they have like an online application system that you can like put in specific ones. Is either that or you have to it just tells you who to contact for each different one. I can't quite recall, and I don't know exactly how they do it now, but I do know that it didn't end up working out for me at the time, but like I knew I had several friends who were able to get in that state internship program, and I assume they still have that or something like that, and that's pretty solid option for the state working with them. But as far as federal, that seems to be a bit more complicated. What I've noticed is the federal internships tend to be more at the graduate school level, and they will get posted on USA Jobs, which if you haven't been to usajobs.gov, and you're looking to work in the federal government, that's where you start. Like I noticed, Department of Commerce just posted one like 2 days ago with the NTIA, which I always forget what that stands for, but it's like broadband related, and it looks really interesting. I think it's a grad school position, but it's kind of unclear, as most things tend to be on USA Jobs. And so it's just kind of one of those weird things where that I think the best thing you can do probably is kind of the same as what I would otherwise recommend for like state and local, is like go on LinkedIn and try to find the people who are in those kind of management positions at the cities and states and even at federal areas. Usually people in an organization are going to have a better idea if they're already working in like the specific office you want to work in, if there is going to be something available, or if something can be made available. Then that's probably the place to go. What I would, I guess at this point, also just recommend, and that is related, but not exactly, because not really internships, it's usually be something you do after you are graduated, or like I did it for 2 years, Americorps, in between undergrad and grad school. And that was an excellent experience for me. I mean, I did 2 different programs. One of them was a better experience than the other. They do vary, but still overall, that was how I got started with FEMA, because FEMA has an Americorps program. So that was how I got that in with the federal government, really. And once I got in that, and I had spent 10 months working for FEMA through that program, and then a few years down the road, I was able to use the connections that I made and the experience that I got from that to be able to actually get a job with FEMA, because the federal government in general for hiring is very specific about, they like, it's one of the things you just constantly, you're like kicking yourself like, why is it this way? But they want you to be able to demonstrate that you have already done the job, like exactly the job that you're like, and sometimes you have to figure out how to kind of just make that work. But yeah, so like, I mean, it worked out for me with the FEMA job because the position that I was like my technical like assigned position within the Americorps program became open as an actual exact position at FEMA, and I was able to say, well, yeah, I did this exactly. And you can, I mean, I didn't do my current job exactly with FEMA. It's not really what I was doing here, but I was able to find ways to make it seem that way, at least for that initial kind of initial review. Most of the federal agencies they just send it to Office of Personnel Management, and you have to kind of get through them before you get to the actual agency. And so you have to just figure out how to find a balance between like writing in your resume that you clearly have like just done exactly what the job is, and then but not exaggerating too much, that then once it gets to the actual agency that you want to work for, you can talk to them more specifically about like, then they'll review you on a more normal kind of basis. But there has to just be this element for some reason where you kind of have to like just basically copy and paste the job description into your resume and figure out how to make it work that you did that, and then answer all the questionnaire. There's always a questionnaire attached to the job, and you do that, and that'll, if you've got figure out how to score highly on that, then that's like your biggest hurdle. And then it's like just a normal job application interview process, and it's not so bad, but it's getting that first, like not just getting immediately booted out because you didn't put the exact right things in the system. So, but yeah, I mean, that figuring out how to use USA Jobs, and then basically I also would say just for that getting experience. I mean, I had a great time and really found a really good way to make connections and kind of get that in with wanting to be in federal government with Americorps. And then my other Americorps position was with the Red Cross, which was also good and looks great on a resume. To just say, hey, I worked for the American Red Cross, so I mean that's they're very well known, and so I had that nonprofit experience. It convinced me I didn't really want to be in the nonprofit world, but it was also a good kind of low risk way to figure that out and still get some really good experience that I didn't waste my time. Like I still had this really good experience on my resume that I was able to then transition back into the government world. So.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback off of that for 1 second, Miss Laura?
Go for it.
Listening to Mr. Andrew, I have forgot that, yes, I did 2 terms as an Americorps Summer Vista myself. And I was going to say that's one of the things where we were saying, do an internship, go full force and see if that's what you want to do. I did my first one with the university because I thought I was going to do college access programming for students, which it sounds nice. And it was a great experience, but I realized that really wasn't my niche. Like I wanted to be in local government instead. But the Americorps Summer Vista program, it was 3 months. They did pay you. You had to worry about your own housing, which that's another one where I just slept on a family member's couch. But that was some great networking for me because like Andrew said, once you get in federally, had I wanted to switch, and explore some options federally or on the state side, they give you preferential, I don't want to say treatment, but once you've already done that, because you get fingerprinted for that and everything, and they do your background, that kind of gives you an entryway into doing that, into joining, the state and local federal side if you wanted to. And also I'm thinking here, I don't know the exact contact, Ms. Laura, I'll have to do some digging and get it to you. But if I'm not mistaken, municipalities also do that. When I worked with the city of Greensboro, I don't know how they did it, but they had a small portion of funds that they could have Summer Vistas come in and help them because they had certain areas of the city for the different wards that were low income, kind of like low income neighborhoods. And that's kind of the focal point of Americorps is to go in and to help these underfunded neighborhoods and communities and help, in any way that they can. So that may even be an opportunity for some of you all is just to Google the Americorps Vista. And I know on their page, they have different offerings where you can apply. And if you want to do something short, like in the summer for 3 months, just to make a little bit, change and get that experience, you can do that as well. In addition to like the year ones that Andrew was talking about. Great point, Andrew.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up, Heidi, because I totally forgot that there are also, I did the 2 10-month terms, but there's also the summer opportunities, and that would be fit a lot better into something you could do and that kind of similar substitute of like a traditional internship and do over a summer and then still go right back to class. So that would be a great opportunity. And yeah, that's another thing. I sometimes kick myself, but I don't know. I did the other 2 Americorps programs other than Vista, and I've often wished that I did do a Vista because the Vista, you do get that federal hiring preference that you get a couple extra points added to whatever your score is on your with your resume and the qualification kind of quiz type of thing, the questionnaire that you fill out when for federal jobs. That you get a score from that, and you get extra bonus points added if you did Vista. And it's pretty much, I think it's either the same or maybe only slightly fewer points than you get like if you have like if you're a veteran, if you had military service, and so that's like really key. And I often find myself wishing I had that still at this point for looking at federal jobs, but because I still don't have any specific preference other than that I've worked for the federal government before at this point. But I still did have a good experience doing the other one is the Americorps State and National. So they are nationwide Americorps programs and state specific Americorps programs that are all combined together. And you don't get any kind of preference for doing those with federal hiring, but you do get really great experience. And those are a little, I would say if you're looking at those are a little more loosey-goosey, I found, I guess, of like, they're not quite as tightly managed and controlled by Americorps and the Corporation for National Community Service. So those are where it's like, you just got to kind of like make sure you know what you're getting into and make sure that it's a fairly established program that has like specific plans for how you can get like really useful experience. And then the other one is the National Civilian Community Corps, I guess is what it's, NCCC, and that's the one that has the FEMA component. They have a FEMA core program, and within that, and then a traditional one where you just do more like nonprofit work. And so that's the other program, and that one is for 18 to 24-year-olds only specifically. But I imagine a fair number of you fall into that. And that one, that was what I did with the FEMA core one, and that was the best experience that I had out of those. And I would continue to. It's changed a lot since I did it because I was in the very first class of it. They had just started it, and it's been going for a while now, and I've still heard that it's only gotten better. So definitely something that I would recommend. I think they actually have more of a direct pathway now to take you from that FEMA core program into FEMA or some other federal positions, versus even though you don't get a hiring preference out of it. You may sort of, at least with FEMA, and that, you know, I didn't have that when I did it, but yeah, so just something to keep in mind. And yeah, I don't know if anyone did have any questions about Americorps. I was like one of the like core representative, ambassador, or whatever people when I did it, and it's maybe some of it's fallen off, but I used to be able to at least tell you like pretty much everything you want to know about Americorps. So I would be happy to, you know, have you email me or whatever. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Andrew and Heidi. I want to give Doug a second to talk about internships with LAM. And then I know John has your hand raised. So I want to get to your question as well. Doug.
Thanks, Laura. So real quick, you know, LAM's a small organization. We have 100 people or so. We do have internship opportunities in New York, in our New York office. You know, with COVID, what that's going to look like this summer, I don't really know yet. Here in Charlotte, it's an expansion territory, so we do not have internship opportunities here. So great, but full-time opportunities, right? Perfect. Thank you, Doug. John, tell us your question.
So I just wanted to know a little bit about Americorps, since I'm still looking for things to do this summer. Is it particularly difficult to get in? Do they have GPA requirements, or and then the second part is in addition to being a political science student, I'm also majoring in computer information systems. So I wondered if Americorps is looking for anything technology related, as well as anything, you know, for helping communities and all that kind of stuff as well.
I know that the Americorps, I can refer you to the Americorps website, and they have all kinds of types of positions. So if you want to chat further about what specific positions would be good for you, I'll put my email in the chat, and it sounds like, Andrew, you could be a good resource for that as well. So they have types of positions in all kinds of fields and areas, so you can definitely chat more about that. Do you, Heidi or Andrew, have any experience in knowing about the selectivity of the program?
Well, yeah, I guess that is one of those other things that very much varies throughout, because the Americorps does have these kind of like 3 different main programs, and then even with that, in that there are other individual tip programs from that, and I think that it probably really just depends. But if you want to be able to have an option to do something with Americorps, that you can pretty much do it. Like there's very, depending on which, you may just not have as many options to select within all of Americorps, but there's going to be at least one that, like, no matter what kind of qualifications or background you have or how you did in school or anything like that, you can get in and do it. So I think that's, and then it just kind of, obviously the programs that are probably the ones that you're going to get the best experience out of, or that are more popular or interesting, are the ones that are likely to have that higher selectivity. When I was doing FEMA Corps, I think because they had just started, no one knew about it even, and so like they were like begging to get people to join it. I guess apparently their more traditional one was actually more selective at that point, and and I wanted to do FEMA Corps, so I guess I got lucky with that. But like I had applied to both just to do it, and I got an acceptance back for the traditional one before I heard anything about the FEMA Corps one. And I messaged them, was like, this is cool, but I kind of wanted to do FEMA Corps, and I don't want to commit to anything until I know about that one. And they're like, well, you want to do FEMA Corps? I was like, yeah. So, but I think since then, from what I've heard, that's gotten a little more selective, but I don't think it's like crazy impossible to get into or anything. I will say that there was a program in Oregon that I had really wanted to do at one point that was through the University of Oregon. So it was a state program, but then housed in their university, and you would get graduate credit for doing it, as well as the Americorps same regular stipend and experience and all that. And that one was extremely selective, and they had a kind of a weird process, and I got selected, but then not placed. So it was kind of weird. I don't know what was going on with that. They were like letting in a few more people than they actually had projects for, and then because like, well, you would accept you to the program and then they would assign you a project, and that was like this weird kind of thing. I was like, yeah, I got into the program, and then they're like, actually, but yeah, we don't have a project for you. So, and that was like a whole thing too. You had to do this whole big thing to get into their program, and then you had to like apply to the specific projects and interview with the different communities that you could possibly work with. And I guess in that process or whatever, I just didn't rank highly enough or whatever, and then they didn't have one to place me with or something. So it was just kind of one of these weird things. So like that, I mean, I think it ranged. It can be basically to say it can go all over the range of being super competitive and difficult, or you can pretty much, if you want to join it and you put in your information and you don't, you're like, you can basically, form a sentence, then you're good. So it just kind of depends.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. If any of you are interested in any opportunities with Americorps or with Lamb Insurance or in public administration with Bessemer City or anything, I'm going to encourage the panelists to put your contact information in the chat if you'd like, so that the students here can get in touch with you if they need to. And I'm also going to put a link to schedule an appointment through Handshake. If you'd like to talk about preparation for submitting an application for an internship or a full-time job or graduate school, you're welcome to do that using that link there. Thank you so much, panelists. I apologize we went over a little bit on your time, so I want to wrap up so that everybody can get on with their day. But thank you, panelists. We really appreciate all the advice that you provided, and thank you, students, for joining. Be sure to follow up with these folks and tell them that you're grateful for their time, and stay connected with them. And connect with
Laura,
them.
if I could real quick, thank you, Doug and Heidi and Andrew, and thank you, Heidi and Andrew, for your service to our country. People, I think, forget that just like the military, service in Americorps is service to our country, and we appreciate it. But thank you all for taking time, and students, thank you for being here. I hope that you found, I'm sure you found a lot beneficial in what our panelists had to say. And if you need an internship, if you're in government justice studies, that you need to come and talk to me, especially if you're thinking about a summer internship. You should come and talk to me right away.
Thank you, everyone. Again, reach out if you have.
I have a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Chris, from May, are you in the building? Like in App
No,
State?
I'm working from home, but if you go to the GJS Internships webpage,
okay,
or the GJS Internships As You Learn page, you can find my contact information there.
Okay, because I need to talk to you. All right, thanks.
Thank you all so much. Thank you again, panelists. Lovely having you here. And thank you, students. I hope you all have a great day.